Hey YouTube! Well, Christmas has come and gone in Mississippi. And it has been raining its butt off for almost a week now. Just monsoon style. So I'm just now, with all the Christmas stuff that we had going on and the different places we needed to go, between that and I ended up having to work some during Christmas week when I was supposed to be off. And all the rain involved. So between all of that, I'm just now getting around to finishing up the 38 Super loading video that I started over a week ago and uploaded. So when we left off last time, we had the cases prepped, we had them sized, we had them primed, ready to go. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to weigh up our powder and charge our cases with our powder. Now, we've got, like I said, accurate number 7 powder. That's what we're going to be loading. And like I said in the previous video, I chose the accurate number 7 because it will work for a wide range of bullet choices that I want to try to load with this gun. So for now, what I did was, I have been loading, on the last set, I loaded a mild charge of powder. To start with, let me find my page, because I had got off my page here in my book. Yeah, here we go, 38 Super. So, as I said before, last video, we are loading Speer 115 grain 355 full metal jacket. Or, well, as Speer calls them, total metal jacket rounders. So, with the accurate number 7 powder, according to our reloading book, so let me interject in the video right here and say, yeah, I'm dumb. You probably saw on the book that I had the Sierra page up instead of the Speer page for the bullets that we are loading. Yeah, I'm an idiot. I didn't even notice it, but I double checked at the end when I actually did notice it. I already had my powder charges weighed, and I said, well, I'll just remake the video. But instead of emptying all the powder charges out and going back, resetting the scale, everything, being as the powder charges, I checked and the charge rates are the same. We're just going to go ahead and continue on. And I went ahead and continued on with the same loads because the loads are the same for the powder charges between the Speer 115s and the Sierra 115s. So yeah, I'm an idiot, had the wrong page open, but the loads are the same. 115 bullet is basically a 115 bullet in this gun. Our accurate number 7, our starting load is 8.4 grains, and our max load is 10.2 grains. So, kind of went in the last time and I used a medium range of it. I went with 9 grains of powder. So, what I want to do is, I want to pick it up a little bit on here. And I want to go with a 9.6 grain of powder this time, is what I want to go to. Now, your 38 Super, you can load a 38 Super hot. Approaching, with light loads, approaching 357 Magnum velocities, which is ridiculous for this little old bullet. It's a decent amount hotter than a 9mm, even a 9mm plus P. So, but the thing about it is, if you're going to load it hot, you need a gun with a supported chamber. Forgot I don't have a mag in here. So you need a supported chamber barrel in your gun. Well, mine, this Colt, does not have a supported chamber barrel. So I thought about, in the past, I thought about sending it off to Wilson Combat and having the frame milled down and putting a supported chamber barrel in it. But the fact is, the reading that I've done on it, the research I've done on it, seems to be kind of a mixed bag, whether if you go to a supported chamber barrel in a gun that's like this, that is not supported chamber to begin with, people get kind of mixed results. Some of them say it feeds fine and does good. Some people say it doesn't feed fine. Some people say they lose feeding quality. And so I kind of hate to take that risk, for lack of a better way of putting it, because I don't think it's really a risk. I think if I sent it to Wilson Combat and got them to fit the barrel, mill it down, fit the barrel for me, I probably wouldn't have any problems. But just to mitigate any chance of that happening, I have just left it alone, because this gun just eats everything. And you always hear horror stories of 1911s that are finicky about ammo. They don't want to chamber and feed anything but a full metal jacket. They don't want to feed hollow points or anything like that. They only like full metal jacket round nose. Well, this thing is not. That's not been the case with this thing. This gun has just ate everything that I have ever put in it, and so it shoots too good. I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to run the risk of it losing that reliability as far as feeding wise. So I haven't sent it off and had it milled down and put a supported chamber barrel in it. So I'm shooting an unsupported chamber. And if you're not familiar with the 38 Super round, what the problem is with an unsupported chamber barrel is if you start loading it and you start loading it really hot, then in the unsupported chamber, at the bottom of the chamber is where you don't have your support on the casing. And so right here at the very bottom, near the back of the casing, it'll start to bulge on you because you're missing a part of the chamber right there at that little area. So you can't really load it as hot as you can load a 38 Super unless you've got some really good brass, which I do not have. These are just, like I said in the first video, these are just range pickups that I got at a gun show. I don't know what the quality of this brass is, so I can't really load it as hot as I want. So maybe one day I'll get a gun with a supported chamber and I'll try it, because I mean, I really want to get a Caspian slide and a Caspian frame and custom build a gun, because this is a government and I really would like to have a commander model in a 38 Super with a bobtail. So one day when funds are available for something such as that, I'm going to buy a Caspian frame and slide with a bobtail and build a gun with a supported chamber, a commander model, and see how that works. But for now, I guess I'm going to stick with this one like it is, because the thing just shoots too good. It is too nice of shooting a gun, eats ammo, and is too reliable to possibly mess it up doing that type of modification with it. But anyway, I digress. Back to reloading. So that's enough of that rant. So we're going to go with a 9.6 grain. I want to try to bump up to that. I did 9.0, so we're going to go up to 9.6. I mean, our maximum is 10.2. But, well, I'll take it back. Let's load. We've got 15 rounds here to play with. Let's load 5 of them with 9.3, 5 of them with 9.6, and we'll see what that does. And I'll leave the other 5 alone, and if they shoot good, we'll go up to 9.9 and give that a try. So yeah, we'll do that. We'll do 9.3 and 9.6 grains of powder. So, let me get my dies out of the way for a second. I still got them sitting out where I had them. So as I said before, I've got my two powder measures, 2 RCBS powder measures, and for pistol, I use my small drum powder measure, because this thing is fantastic when it is measuring ball powder with this small drum. And I've also got my 2 scales, and I will go ahead and get them both out for us to check out. And as a matter of fact, let me zero this thing first. So, we'll go ahead and zero this scale. I'll show you that process. So this scale, this RCBS scale, zeros pretty easily. I'll go ahead and put my empty little powder tray in there. set it on my bench where I want it, move it back here out of the way. And all you do to zero this scale is you turn this little wheel on the bottom. Line it up, and there we go. Alright, so that basically zeroes or tears the scale. Alright, now I've also got my digital scale. It's very important that you have two scales. You want a good balance scale, and you want a good digital scale. Your digital scale is great for quick check, quick measurements. Put it on, tear it to zero, quick measurements, but you always want to have a second scale to double check your digital scale with, just to be sure that your digital scale is measuring correctly, because these digital scales are known to give you issues sometimes. So, I'm going to go ahead and set to my 9.3, which is my first one. 9.3 grains there. I've tore this scale off. I have teared this scale. Now, the next thing you want is you can check it with your check weights, which I have. I'm going to try 10 ounces first, just to give it a good try. Since we're real close to 10, I'm going to go to 10. Alright, so our digital scale is reading exactly 10, which is great. So it is dead on with our check weight. Now, a lot of people will take their check weights and they will measure out with their check weights to their exact measurement, or as close to their exact measurement as they can. Usually what I do with my check weights is I pick a weight that is close, within a half a grain or within 1 grain of my powder. If it's a rifle, I'll check it within a grain usually. If it's a pistol, I want to check it within a half a grain of it. And so like we're shooting 9.3 and 9.6, so I stuck the 10 grain check weight on there just to be sure that our scale is reading what it says it's reading. So I'm happy with that. I'm good with that. So we're going to try to go to 9.3 grains first of all. So let's just see where this thing's set. Now, the method I use for actually going in here and getting the powder to fall out of the powder measure correctly is to give it one little tap here on bottom, like that, go up, give it a little tap like that, come down. One thing I learned the hard way about this powder measure, but either one of these powder measures, is when you stick your powdered cup under there, put it all the way up against your spout. Because I learned the hard way, if you hold it down some, the powder is going to ricochet out of it and go everywhere. So we're at 7.8. So I'm going to turn her out some. Matter of fact, I'm going to loosen this up so it'll go a little bit out. And I'm going to go out about 3 turns. And let's see what that is. Right there. Let's see what that is. Ooh, that was too much. That's 12. That's 11.9. Too much. Let's go in a turn. Six. Let's go in another turn. In 3. Well, we're getting closer. Alright, so we're within a grain of it. So I'm going to tighten this down a little bit so I can and get a little tighter. And I'm going to go in a half turn, see what happens. I'm going to check my zero. Now, one thing I have noticed about this is a Lyman scale. And there's a whole bunch of these little digital scales, Frankfurt Arsenal, and then there's piles of different Chinese ones on eBay. Now, one thing I have noticed about this Lyman scale is it appears to be fairly accurate, except you do have to check it ever so often and re-tear it because it will tend to wander on you. Alright, that's 9.6. So I'm going to go in just a hair more, maybe an eighth turn. See what happens. Still 9.6, 9.5. So let's go in another about an eighth. .5. Make sure we got all the excess out of it. 9.4. I'm just going in an eighth of a turn at a time till I get to where I want to be. That's a steady 9.4. .2. So I'm going to back it out a little bit. Just a hair. Check my scale tear because this is probably going to be pretty close. That's pretty close. Let's try again. .3. So now that we got a 9.3 on our digital scale, let's sit it on our balance beam scale and see what it says. And the balance beam agrees. Yep. So our balance beam agrees with our digital scale. So at this point we've got a good powder measure going on here. So we're going to weigh a few, we're going to weigh out a few and see what happens when we weigh out a few. And what I'm going to do is, in the meantime, I am going to empty out, I've got black powder in my trickler. I'm going to empty out my trickler of black powder real quick so that I can dump the powder out of here into the trickler so that I'm not banging on my powder measure while I'm trying to measure out these charges. Okay, so I got all the black powder out of the trickler, which wasn't a fun experience. I had to dig it out. I left it sitting there a little too long, and it kind of got a little packed in there. But I got it all out now. So now we're going to weigh us out some charges and check the consistency of our charge that we've got measured. So I'm going to go ahead and re-tear our scale, and as you notice, I moved it, so now it is measuring -0.6. So I'm going to go ahead and tear it, and there we go. Alright, now let's measure some charges. See what we get. Alright, so that's 8.9, so that's a little light. .0. 9.0. Alright, so we're a little bit light on our charge. So we'll go ahead and we'll back it out a little bit. We'll back it out about an eighth. There we go, 9.3. Let's just tighten that down a little bit right there. See what happens on these next few. 9.3. 9.3. 9.3. 9.3. 9.4. 9.4. Let's check our scale there. Okay, so 9.3. Okay, so I'm happy with that. That's 9.3 to 9.4 across the board on there. So, the next all we got left to do now is charge our cases. Now, these Uniflow powder measures come with two outlet adapters. A small one and a large one. And the case hole is the same size, but they come with two different size holes for the powder to fall through. I've got the small one in my small drum and the big one in my big drum, of course. Now, we've charged those 5 cases with our 9.3. So what you want to do is you take a look at your cases. And I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to try to get you a view of it. And you can see the powder down in them. So you just want to take a look at your powder and make sure that all of your cases look like they have roughly the same amount of powder in them. And once you do that, you can call that good. Now we're going to bump it up to our 9.6 charge. So I'm going to back this thing out a little bit. About a quarter of a turn, and let's see what happens. First of all, let me tear my scale, and then I'm going to move this over to 9.6 on our balance beam scale. Let's see what it says. That's measuring still a little light. So we're going to go out a little bit more. Go up about another quarter turn. Alright, that's a little heavy. That may be been a little too much. Let's try another one. Make sure all residual powder's out. Yeah, that's 9.5. I figured that might have been a fluke, that first one. Scale's reading 0 still. Yep, we'll just tear it again for good measure. Check another one. 9.6. So since we're seeing 9.6 on that scale, let's check our balance beam. See what it says. And the balance beam says, when it decides to settle, right on the money. Okay. Tear's good. So we'll throw a couple charges at this 9.6 just to give it a good check. 9.6. Powder trickler's starting to get full. Nine point six. 9.6. 9.6. One more for good measure. 9.6. Okay, so we know that's good. We've thrown enough powder that we can be assured that we've got 9.6. Alright, so let's load this second row of cases. Take a look at those. They all look good. Alright. Now, got our cases charged up. We'll go ahead and dump this excess powder out of our powder trickler into here. There we go. Now, on to the next step, which is seating our bullets. So we're going to go to our handy dandy Lee loading kit, and we're going to pull out our bullet seating die. Now, our bullet seating die in this kit performs two functions. This die will crimp, will seat the bullet, and it will taper crimp the bullet. Now, some people like a taper crimp. Me, taper crimp is okay, but I prefer the factory crimp die, which I have one of right here. That's what we will crimp with when we're done. But a taper crimp will work fine. Don't get me wrong, it will work. I just prefer the factory crimp die. So, to use our bullet seating die, I'm going to go ahead and back our lock ring off some. We are going to back off our seating stem and back it out way on out. There we go. So she's backed out now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a case into this thing and pull it up. Now, your instructions are not going to tell you this. I learned this from YouTube. And what we're going to do is we're going to run our die in. Back off our lock ring. We're going to run our die in. And I'm going to run it in until I feel the die contact the case. And the reason why I'm going to stop there is if I stop when I contact that case, that is where the die will start to crimp the case if you run the case on further up in. So, what I'm going to do is I don't want to crimp at all with this die because I'm going to use my factory crimp die. So I'm going to run it into this unloaded case until it touches, and I'm going to back it out a half a turn. so that it's not going to touch my case at all. Then I'm going to tighten down my lock ring so it doesn't move. And remember, we're not duplicating around here. So we've got our bullet seating stem back all the way out. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to consult our manual for our length. Our manual for our 115 full metal jacket says cartridge overall length of 1.275. So that's what we're going to shoot for, is our 1.275 inches. So we're going to start off with one of our loaded rounds. We're going to take our bullet. And remember, we flared the case mouth already. So our bullet, look at that, sets in there nice and pretty and gets started. We just line our bullet up straight and get it going. Then we take it, we put it in our shell holder, and we're going to move it up. I'm going to move the camera closer so you can get a better view. Alright, there you go. So hopefully you can get a better view there. Now remember, we've got this backed all the way out. So we're going to go up and start seating this bullet. Shouldn't even touch, and it doesn't. So I'm going to run this down until I feel it impact my bullet. Right there. That's it. Okay. Now I'm going to turn it in a quarter turn. That barely moved that bullet. I'm going to get out my dial calipers because I'm going to need them to measure my bullet length. Now I have yet to buy a bullet comparator set. I need to buy one. I just haven't spent the money on one yet. So our cartridge overall length is 1.275. So we're going to be measuring to the tip of the cartridge from the base of the bullet. So let's see what that length is. We are at 1.3645. So we got a long way to go. Now, a lot of times, a lot of people will tell you that you will waste a round setting up your seating die. I don't believe that. I don't practice that. What I do is I ease in a little bit at a time, maybe quarter turn at a time, until I get to where I want to be, because I don't want to waste a loaded round. I had a friend that showed me some reloading one time, and he said, well, you're always going to waste a round or two. Well, I don't want to do that. I don't like to do that. 1.332, so we're getting closer. Go another quarter turn. .317, so a quarter. Okay, so my battery died on my dial caliper. So now, let's zero it back out, and let's see where we're at. Remember, we're shooting for 1.275. And we are at 1.303. So we're going to go in another quarter. Now, this is a basic seating die for a bullet. They make really nice micrometer seating dies. And I probably will get one when I start loading 30-06, 300 Magnum, things of that nature. Rifle rounds, because I'll be wanting to set my rifle rounds certain distance off the lands. But for pistol, not necessary. 1.288 is where we're at. So we're going to bump it in just a hair. Just barely touch it. Let's see what happens there. 12865. So that wasn't quite a hair enough. Oh yeah, that moved it. Let's see what happens. 1.283. $1.279. $1.278. And I'm just hitting it a little bit at a time because, like I said, I do not want to waste this cartridge, this loaded cartridge. 1.2755. Now, if you're a little bit short, it doesn't hurt. You just don't want to be over your maximum length. A hair short is fine. 1.2755. I didn't really move it. There we go. .274. So that's perfect. That's what we want to shoot for. Our maximum overall length is 1.275. 1.274 is great. So let's load another one. See what happens. We got the flare just right on these. They were already sized. They sized a lot better after firing out of my gun than they did when I got them from the gun show, and they've been shot in all weird guns. Now, when you've got your sizing dice, your bullet seating dice set, you're going to want to gently push your bullet in. You don't want to ram that bullet home because you'll mess the bullet up. 1.2755 is where we're at on that one. So we're going to bump it in just a hair more. You gently push your bullet in. And that's going to get even more important when you start dealing with hollow points. 1.745. Perfect. Hollow points, things of that nature, you will mess up. And especially when you get into rifle rounds where you have a long bullet, a long slender bullet with a long ogive, you will mess up your bullet real quick and real easily if you ram that thing home and you don't ease it in gently. .2745. Full metal jackets, round nose full metal jackets are pretty well consistent. When you're looking at hollow points and things of that nature, your hollow points, their noses, the tips of the bullets are not going to be that consistent. You're going to get some variation in them. That's where it's real handy to have a bullet comparator. But full metal jacket round nose, they are pretty consistent. This one's 1.272. That's fine. A little bit short is fine, as long as we're not over our maximum length. .2745. There we go. All right, that's all our 9.3s. Let's do the same thing to our 9.6 grain rounds. Make sure I got my bullet in straight. .2745. Beautiful. I love it. Stick this one in. Case shape is much better after being fired in my gun. No bulging. It's not trying to bulge at all when I seat the bullets. That one's a little bit long, but 175 on the nose. That's good. So the cases aren't trying to bulge at all when I seat the bullets. They're not giving me any trouble seating the bullets. They're not tight. They flared nicely. So just much better now that they've been fired once than before when they were fresh range pickups. 1.274. Good. .735. That's a little bit short, but it's good. It's only 1,000. And you know, when you're dealing with something like this and you're seating these bullets, your cartridge overall length, that's the SAMI spec for your maximum length of your cartridge in SAMI spec. You'll learn when you get into loading rifle that your rifle likes a certain distance off the lands of the rifling that your bullet's going to hit. And every rifle's different, and every rifle likes a different distance off the lands. So if your rifle, if its chamber is extra long and your rifling lands are an extra long distance from your bullet, as long as your bullet will still fit in your magazine and will still go far enough down in your case to fit properly, then there's nothing wrong with exceeding the overall length on the bullet. It's going to be tailored to your gun. Now that's true for bolt action rifles. That's true for even semi-autos. But you've got to measure the chamber of your gun and measure your distance to the lands to know whether or not it's going to work for you to exceed that maximum distance. I've never actually measured the distance to the lands on my pistol here, so I don't know if I can exceed maximum length. So I'm making sure that I'm going ahead and loading to maximum length so that I'm staying within the SAMI spec, so that I don't have any problem with the bullets chambering in my gun. I've already loaded some of these, and I've already loaded them to the 1.275 length. So therefore, I know that it's going to be the right length cartridge for my gun. Okay, so on to crimping. We've got our 10 rounds, our 10 initial rounds loaded up for our little introductory loading video. We have them primed, we have them charged, and we have our bullets seated, and our measurements. We went with 1.275 for our maximum overall length. Now, if you look at different 115 grain manufacturers' specifications for a 115 grain round, those interesting. In my book, Spear calls out 1.275. Sierra calls out 1.270. It just depends upon the manufacturer as to what they are going to say their overall length needs to be. But the difference between 1.275 and 1.270 is not that much. So you could probably, if you had a bullet and you needed to load it to, and you didn't have the overall length listed for that particular bullet, you could probably go to a similar bullet. As a matter of fact, I know you can go to a similar bullet and load them to the same length, and you'll be in fine shape. Alright, so for our crimp here, I'm going to use the Lee factory crimp die for the 38 Super. Like I said before, I've got a factory crimp die for this one. I've got it for my 45-70. I will get one for 45 ACP. I will get one for 30-06. I will get one for every gun bullet that I use because I like it. Now, sometimes in some situations, and you don't need to crimp. Like my 45-70s, they are a single shot rifles. So since you're loading one round at a time and you're hand loading it in, you don't really need to crimp, and they may respond better to not crimping. We're going to play with that in the future on this channel. We're going to play a lot with those and do some testing with all different kinds of bullets with those. Crimp, not crimp, distance to the lands, jump, everything, powders. We're going to do a lot of playing with the 45-70 because I really like that round. and not a whole lot of people at least on YouTube, mess with it a lot that I can find. So we're going to play with those. And so we may find that the gun doesn't like a crimp. I have been crimping from the get-go with the factory crimp die because of the fact that since I do have single-shot rifles, my wife and I both hunt with them, then we carry our bullets around in our pocket. So our bullets are clanging around in our pockets. They're moving around. We're walking a lot of times long distances, sometimes a mile nearly. And I just like to crimp for the peace of mind that my bullet is not going to move while we're running around banging those bullets around. But who knows, may find that the gun's like without a crimp and we may have to get some bullet holders to put them in. Alright, but back to our crimping for our 38 Super. This is the factory crimp die. Since it is a semi-auto gun, yes, we do need to crimp in a semi-auto because of the fact that the gun is going to be auto chambering and the bullet is going to be shoved on by the gun. If you weren't able to notice it, of course, on the video, but it doesn't take much force to push this little bullet down into this 38 Super round. And in semi-autos, if you've never noticed, pay attention. If you chamber a round multiple times in a semi-auto, if that round does not have a good crimp, then you will physically push that bullet on further down into that gun, and you will seat it too deep, and you could cause overpressure problems that could blow your gun up. I had a pack of Wilson Combat 38 Super Hollow Point XTP, Hornady XTPs. I bought them before I started reloading because I wanted that particular bullet in 38 Super, and Wilson was the only one I could find. I've got one that I loaded. I don't have it handy, or I would show it to you. I got one. I've chambered that round many times, and I have pushed that bullet back down into the case. So apparently there was not a really strong crimp on those bullets. So we're going to crimp these. So we pull out our instructions for our nice handy factory crimp die. Now this is a carbide factory crimp die, so it has a carbide ring in it like our sizing die does. And the instructions explains the reasoning for the carbide ring. So if we read our instructions, the Lee factory crimper will not seat the bullet. The bullet should be seated with your regular bullet seating die, which we've done, but not crimped, which we didn't do. Bullets should normally be seated so the crimp groove is mostly inside the case mouth. Now these particular bullets we're using do not have a crimp groove. So we don't have any way to gauge that. We had to do it by length. If you got a crimp groove on your bullet, then you don't really have to seat to a specific cartridge overall length. You can seat to that crimp groove and you're fine because that crimp groove is going to be in the right place. Or, well, most of the time it will be in the right place for that bullet and your cartridge. So it's good to check it anyway, but once you've got it checked and you're assured that, yeah, it's okay, then you can just seat that crimp groove. Then on. Alright, so, however, this is not absolutely necessary. The Lee Carbide factory crimp die will form a crimp groove in the bullet. Alright, so the instruction says, screw the die in until it just touches the shell holder and back out the adjusting screw. Finger tighten the lock ring. Once set, it will never move after the lock ring when blah, 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 blah. Alright, so we're going to back out. I've got this backed out already. But we're going to go ahead and back it on out. We're going to loosen this lock ring. This die actually has a really tight O-ring on its lock ring, which is nice because it helps it. I'm going to pull up our ram, screw the die in till it just touches the shell holder. And there we go. Finger tighten the lock ring. There we go. Finger tight. Alright, backed out the adjusting screw. Next, with the loaded round in the die, turn the adjusting screw in until you can feel it just touch the case mouth. Then move the cartridge out of the die slightly and screw the adjusting screw in half turn for a light crimp, 1 full turn for a heavy crimp. You can adjust for even greater crimp and never have to worry about buckling the case as with conventional crimpers. Alright, number 4 explains the carbide. The case is sized as it enters the die and again as it is pulled out of the die. This assures you every case will freely chamber in any standard gun. Don't expect the carbide sizer to touch every case. It is a fail-safe tool for the occasional bad round that could ruin your day. So I like that feature about this die. That if you have accidentally bulged your case a little bit loading your round, it's going to push it back down and you're going to be good. Now these cases are not. These things came out really great out of the sizing die. Alright, so I backed this way on out. We're going to push this on up in there. And it's right through. Boom. And now it always, in my experience, after I have seated a bullet, it always touches the case a little bit. So we're going to go on down until we feel it. There it is. There's the case mouth. We're going to come out with it. And I'm going to go in 1 full turn because I want a good stout crimp. There's a half turn. There's a full turn. Alright, in we go. There we go. A nice firm crimp. It put a nice little crimp groove in there. Now what I do when I crimp mine is I move it to the other side. That way I know I've crimped it. And with the next one, nice pretty crimp groove. Beautiful. Nice and stout. Nice and tight. Now that one didn't touch. Interesting. There we go, nice crimp. So obviously that bullet was a little bit narrower. That one touched. The rest of them have touched so far. And you get that sometimes. Sometimes your bullet itself will be slightly narrower than its compadres. There we go. Last one. Nice and crimped. Nice and pretty. One loaded case. Oh, there we go. Now we got it. Nice, pretty crimp. Looks great. And that's it. There you have it. 10 nice, freshly loaded 38 Super rounds. Ready to go. So, if you like what you see so far, follow the channel. We're going to be doing a lot more stuff. The channel's just getting started. I know at this point I've only got about 4 videos up. I'm learning how to do this. I'm filming on my phone right now. I haven't even got a camera yet. I'm editing on a free app software. So, still learning, but we're going to do a lot more stuff. We're going to get into a lot different rounds. We're going to get into a lot of different guns, hopefully, in the near future. So, Channel's going to get more frequent. Going to try to do some videos. Weather gets better. Hopefully going to try to do some at least one video a week where we're messing with stuff. We're going to start getting some more powders coming in here. Going to get some more bullets coming in here. Doing some more stuff. So like I said, again, if you like what you see so far, follow the channel. But until next time, have a good one.